In this film, we will show you how to remove the complete Z1 engine from a fully assembled motorcycle and then how to remount it. To start with, place an oil pan under the engine, remove the engine oil drain plug and drain the oil. The drain plug is magnetic to pick up any metal filings which may appear in the oil, so it must be wiped clean before reinstallation later. Even after the engine oil is drained from the engine itself, oil still remains in the filter, so also remove the oil drain plug from the oil filter cover. Open the seat, unhooking it so that it will open wide enough to keep from scratching the fuel tank. Turn the fuel tap to the S position and pull off the two gasoline hoses. Don't use bare pliers to pull the hoses as they may become damaged. Slip the retaining band off the rear of the fuel tank and pull the tank off toward the rear. Disconnect the one black and one green wire that join the ignition coils to the contact breaker points. Pull off the spark plug wires and hook them up out of the way. Unscrew the tachometer cable and pull it out of the cylinder head. Unplug the blue connector to disconnect the dynamo wires. Take the starter cable off the starter relay terminal. Replace the nut and washer to keep them from getting lost. Take off the right front footrest. Unbolt the battery lead from where it's grounded on the engine. Loosen the 4 intake manifold clamps and the 4 air cleaner duct clamps and pull all the carburetors off as an assembly toward the rear. There are two throttle cables, one for opening the throttles and one for closing them. Loosen the lock nuts for each cable, pull the cables from their holders, and unhook the inner cable wires from the pulley. Pull the pipe off the oil breather and then remove the pipe and air cleaner together. Remove the nuts holding the exhaust pipe collars to the cylinder head. Pull the collars off the studs and remove the split keeper from each pipe. Remove the mounting bolt from each pair of mufflers and push the pair forward to remove it. Loosen the clamp and separate the mufflers for easy installation later. Take off the left front footrest. Take the clamp bolt completely out and pull off the gear shift pedal. Take off the starter cover and gasket. Take off the oil pump cover. Pull the oil pipe off the chain oil pump and plug the pipe with a screw. Take off the chain cover. Pull the cotter pin out of the clutch release lever and unhook the clutch cable. Take out the 3 screws to remove the sprocket guard and pull out the clutch push rod. Flatten the bent up ear of the sprocket nut lock washer with a cold chisel. Use the special purpose tool to hold the sprocket from turning and remove the sprocket nut. Then pull off the sprocket with the chain still on it. Loosen the brake lamp switch mounting nuts and unhook the spring from the switch. Back the rear brake adjusting nut off to the end of the brake rod to give the brake pedal plenty of play. Loosen the lock nut on the brake pedal position adjusting bolt and back the bolt out until the brake pedal is held down out of the way. Loosen all the engine mounting bolts. The 3 long bolts should be held from turning and their nuts removed. The lower center mounting has a separate short bolt for each side, and these 2 bolts should be removed completely. Remove the right rear engine mounting bracket bolts. Remove the center and front right side mounting brackets. Jack or lever the engine up to take the weight off the mounting bolts. Remove the 3 long bolts and the engine is ready to be pulled out. Lift the engine up very slowly. The rear of the engine must slip up over the right rear engine mount. Now raise the front of the engine a little and pull it out diagonally upward to the right. And that completes engine removal. Engine installation procedure is for the most part the reverse of the removal procedure. Slide the engine in diagonally downward from the right side and roughly align the mounting holes. Loosely mount the 3 right side engine mounting brackets. Jacking or levering the engine up to align the holes, insert the engine mounting bolts. The 3 long bolts go in from the left side. 2 spacers go on the rear upper bolt, a long one on the left side of the engine and a short one on the right side. Next, fit the chain onto the sprocket and mount the sprocket on the output shaft. Put the lock washer on the shaft and align the washer tang with the hole in the sprocket. Screw on the nut and using the special purpose tool to hold the sprocket stationary, tighten the nut down with a specified torque. Then bend up one side of the washer to lock the nut. Tighten the mounting brackets in place with the correct torque. And then tighten the engine mounting bolts themselves, again using the torque wrench. Screw the brake pedal position adjusting bolt back in until the brake pedal comes up to approximately its normal position. Hook the spring back onto the brake lamp switch and loosely mount the switch. Connect the starter wire to the starter relay. And plug in the blue dynamo connector. Clean the battery ground lead and its mounting area and bolt the lead to the engine. Then mount the right front footrest. Screw on the sprocket guard. Insert the clutch push rod into the drive shaft and push the dynamo and starter wires into the groove in the transmission cover. Insert the clutch wire into the chain cover, fit the spring on it, and hook the end of the wire onto the clutch release lever. Insert a cotter pin into the lever to keep the wire from falling out. The groove in the oil pump shaft here must be aligned with the pin in the output shaft before the cover will fit completely on. Apply some oil to the oil seal and use an oil seal guide during chain cover installation to prevent damage to the seal. Spin the rear wheel to align the oil pump shaft and output shaft while pushing the cover on. Then bolt on the cover, being careful to use the 2 long bolts in the forward holes. Set the gasket in place and bolt on the starter cover. Fit the hose back onto the oil pump inlet and push the hose clamp into place. Mount the gear shift pedal. And put on the left front footrest. Now to adjust the clutch, first loosen the lock nut and fully screw in the adjusting thumb screw at the top end of the clutch cable. Then loosen the lock nut and turn in the adjusting nut in the middle of the cable until the outer sleeve of the clutch cable has play. Loosen the lock nut on the clutch adjusting screw. Turn the screw slowly in to the point where it first becomes hard to turn. Back it out 1/2 turn from that point and lock it in place with a lock nut. Screw out the clutch cable adjusting nut at the middle of the cable to adjust clutch cable play and tighten the lock nut. Make fine adjustment with a thumb screw at the clutch lever, tightening the lock nut after adjustment. And now put on the oil pump cover. Next, push the side stand down out of the way and install the mufflers. Be sure to have the exhaust collar on the pipe with a recessed edge toward the head before putting the pipe on. For each side, the inside muffler goes on first. Fit the connecting hose onto both mufflers before inserting the rear mounting bolt. Tighten the exhaust collars well to prevent exhaust leaks. And after muffler mounting, tighten the muffler connecting hose clamp. Install the air cleaner. Push the breather pipe onto the breather, making sure the clamp is in place. Now to install the carburetors. Hook the two throttle cables onto the pulley. The throttle opening cable goes to the rear and the return cable goes to the front. Fit the threaded part of the end of each cable into the cable holder and tighten the nuts to lock it in place. Push the carburetor assembly onto the intake manifold and fit the air ducts onto the intake side. Tighten all the clamps so that there is no leakage. Use the cable adjusters underneath the throttle grip to adjust throttle grip play. First take up all play with the adjuster on the throttle opening cable and then give the grip a little play by turning the return cable adjuster. Tighten the lock nuts on both cables after adjustment. Push the tachometer cable into the opening in the cylinder head and screw it in. The spark plug wires are numbered 1 to 4, corresponding to the cylinder numbers counting from the left. Connect the two wires between the contact breaker points and the ignition coils, green to green and black to black. Unhook the seat to open it fully. Push on the fuel tank. And hook it in place with a retaining band. Push the two gasoline hoses onto the fuel tap and slide their clamps into place. Put on the side covers. Replace the oil filter and engine drain plugs. Fill the engine with about 4 liters of SAE 10W40 weight motor oil. After the engine is run and then stopped for several minutes, the oil should come up above the low mark on the gauge. Next, adjust the brake pedal position before adjusting the brake itself. Use the adjusting bolt over the pedal and set the top of the pedal about 2 millimeters lower than the top of the footrest. Brake adjustment is made with a nut at the end of the rear brake rod. Turn in the nut until the pedal has 20 to 30 millimeters of travel from the rest position to the fully applied position when applied lightly by hand. With the brake correctly adjusted, adjust the brake lamp switch so that it turns on the lamp after 15 to 20 millimeters of brake pedal movement. This completes engine installation.